Hello everybody, welcome to Short Shot Archery. Anthony here, and in this video I'm going to do my best to show you how to have a better follow through. Now this was requested by a subscriber. They asked me, hey, your follow through looks pretty good. How your bow comes out of your hand and it swings. How do you do it? Can you give some points and tips on it? So I'm going to explain how I do it, how I was taught by my coach, who originally comes from Korea and shot on Korean company teams. So he's pretty well experienced and well educated in this, especially since he was a shooter himself. So this is coming from him. Well, it's coming from me after he taught me about this. Also, the way he explained, the follow through to me really helped me understand how I need to go about it, because a lot of it is about the feeling and basically just letting the bow go, and that's going to be a major concept of this. First, we're going to go over what you need, followed by some basic things that you should probably already have squared away before you attempt trying to improve your follow through, because archery, it's like building a house or a castle or whatever kind of analogy you want. You need your foundation, and then you build on top of that. And then once you have your foundation, you just keep working all of the elements of your shot little by little until they all really start coming together. It's a process, but there's a way of going about it. So I'm going to cover, or at least hit on some fundamentals that you should probably have covered before attempting to go and improve your follow through of your shot and how the bow comes out of your hand. And then after that, I will go through some of the key things he said to me and just my experience with getting a better follow through when my bow, when I shoot my bow. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best way or the only way to do this, but this is my way, and I have benefited greatly from this. Of course, if I do learn more in the future, you can expect a version 2 at some point, or if there's more information that is easier to understand, then I'll eventually make a second version of this video, years down the road from now. With that though, let's get started. Alright, so first off, gear. You need all your usual gear, preferably a finger sling, your arm guard, finger tab, arrows, quiver if you got it, and of course, the most important part, or one of the most important parts of this, you need a bow. Your bow setup doesn't have to be fancy. You can have a nice simple bow, but you probably, and I would highly recommend you having a stabilizer, because if you don't have a stabilizer, I don't know how what I'm going to say after this really will relate, because, well, I've always shot with a stabilizer, so I don't know how this will translate into people trying to have a follow through without a stabilizer, or people shooting bare bow. Just a heads up. This way of having a follow through would probably still work, but all of this is built off of the fact that you're going to have a stabilizer on your bow. So just take note of that. A sight is also important, and yeah, that's about it. Your basic bow doesn't have to be fancy like this one. With that though, you do want some proper weight distribution to it. You want your bow to kind of lean forward nicely, not totally flop and fall over, because that's too much, but somewhere around here. If you put your one finger and your thumb and you kind of just hold your bow, look, it kind of just floats here. So you want to get your bow into that position. You can have a little bit less where it's more like this, but right around here, it's going to have a nice follow through response when you have a correct, follow through with your front hand. It's going to launch out of your hand very nicely, and of course, it's going to get caught by your finger sling. Now, for me, weight wise, I have 2 dampeners in the back, and then I have about 3 to 4 ounces worth of weight on each side, depending on how you want to count all the weight I have. For the front, it's basically the same, but it's closer to 5 ounces in the front with the dampener. This giving you a little bit more forwardness to the bow. It wants to come out of your hand and jump. Of course, my side stabilizers are pretty long. They're 14-inch plus the dampeners, so you're looking closer to 16 inches here. And I have a 26-inch front stabilizer, not counting the dampeners, the V-bar, or the 3 or 4 inch extension here. So again, we're pretty close to about 30 inches overall. I'm not putting out really hard numbers on this, saying that you have to have it this way, because your stabilizer is something that you customize to how you want the bow to react and how you want to shoot. Of course, that may change with you having a better follow through, because you can really feel how the bow reacts to your shot, based on where the weight is distributed on it when you have a more correct follow through. Now, regarding my follow through, is it perfect? Is it like Woo Jin Kim or Brady or like Kibo Bay status here? No, but I think overall it's pretty reasonably, like I do it pretty reasonably well. And I feel that it would give anybody a good basis to either perfect it further than I have, or at least give you a start. Because you don't start at the Olympic Games, so you don't start out just suddenly having a great follow through. You take little steps in that direction until you achieve what you want to achieve, but there's work in between. And the same thing with this. My follow through is pretty good, but it's not Olympic level. But then again, it's not beginner either. But then you can see the progression of that if you compare my shooting to some of the top archers in the world. You can see there's a difference, but I am on the path of trying to get there. Okay, so first off, you got all your equipment. We need a range. Now, personally, you should probably start at blank bail. You don't want to shoot any further than 30 meters, but preferably blank bail, because you're not focused on actually, like, you're not scoring or anything. You're shooting arrows. You should probably have a target face on whatever distance target you're shooting at, just because you shouldn't get used to not shooting a face at all, because then like a subconscious thing, it's a target face now, even though nothing's different. But you should always shoot a target face, just because. So do that at like a blank bail distance, 5 meters or something very close. Your stabilizer shouldn't be touching the target, but there should be a couple arrow lengths in front of you, as long as you can do it safely. Same thing with your 18 to 30 meters. Do that where you're comfortable. I wouldn't recommend going further back than 18, and 30 is definitely the max, because you're working on the movement of the bow and how it comes out of your hand. You're not, more so than you're not worried about the distance or anything like that. And once you start getting past 30, there's so many other elements that come into the shot in order to consistently hit the target and things like that. You don't need to be worried about that, because all you're focusing on in this is that bow coming out of your hand and your hand dropping down as the bow's coming out and guiding that bow so it doesn't hit into you. So with that, we need to understand some elements, some fundamental elements that you need taken care of before you go into this. The big things are, you need to already make sure that you have a good starting position, like how you're standing. Make sure that you do that consistently already. Make sure when you're coming into your shot, however you draw your bow, make sure you have your shoulder and your arm, it has a set position. If you don't have a good bow arm already, if this front half of you is not doing its job, you're not holding it well, there's not too much of a point to having a really great follow through, because yes, it's like the guiding factor of the shot. It's going to help with your grouping and things like that, but you're missing all the fundamentals behind it. You're not going to have a stable shot if you don't have a good bow arm and other elements of your shot. There's probably a couple dozen things that you really need to take care of beforehand. But some of the major ones are definitely like your stance, or your feet always set in the right position. Do you at least draw the bow back, fairly consistently the same way every single time? If you're getting these down and you're getting your bow arm set when you're getting, into, full draw, then, you have some of the basic elements, and then, yes, you can work on that follow through. But if you don't have those, don't take this the wrong way, but you really need to work on them first. They are much more important. The follow through is more advanced. It's a tying together piece of the form. It ties together your release and your expansion, and you maintaining the proper form and like just body position, your shoulder alignment and things like that. You're already doing those fairly well, and then this is just like the finishing touch. It's the cherry on top. It puts the arrows more consistently in the gold together. So with that, let's go into actually having a good follow through. There's a couple ways to go about this. First off though, hand positioning on your riser. You don't want your hand too deep. If you're all the way in here, it's not gonna help you. You want to be sitting further out. You want to have most of the contact right in here. You don't want to be all the way inside here. If my string is the grip, we want to be on the outside of this, right out here. We don't want to be in here. It's not going to be helpful to us. It's not going to let us, line up, quite properly for the right clearance, and then just everything to just flow nicely. Because what we're doing is we're smoothing out the shooting process. We're streamlining it. The less steps we do, the cleaner the shot we have, because you can do less steps more accurately than you can do more steps. It's just how it works. And people that have a very stringent form where you're doing 30 steps to get back to shoot an arrow, it's just not going to hold up. It doesn't matter how much you practice. Somebody that has a lot less steps, that are a lot cleaner and smoother, they're going to do better, because it's easier to do. Less you have to think about, less you have to train your body to just know and understand. The big starting point is definitely to have that thumb behind your grip here, but don't have your hand totally on it. It's not going to help you. With that too, you can make kind of a pinching motion with it. You're not really gripping your bow, because the force of it is it's going to pop out of your hand regardless, but it's going to allow you to have a better positioning. So there can be tension in this finger, and there can be tension in your thumb. So pointer finger and thumb, they can have tension. They're going to sit on the grip on the riser, just like this. And that way, when you shoot, boom, it just pops right out. I've tried this other ways for years. Having either no tension in my hand, having tension, in other fingers and things like that. For me, none of it works. And there's honestly, in my opinion, there's no point in doing it. Making that basically a Y shape with your pointer finger pointing down and your thumb pointing forwards, but it can point out depending on how your thumb bends. Everybody's thumb's going to be a little different. Like, it could point forward if your thumb doesn't bend back as far as mine does. But you want this position, because it's just going to allow for that nice clean boom, and the bow flips. And if you can see, my pointer finger here is also guiding that bow. So, real quick, just a little bit of an illustration. Got my hand set. Now I'm drawing back, still maintaining that position. Hopefully you can see that. And I come into anchor. Boom. And the bow does not hit me. My stabilizer end weight here, it does not hit me. Why? Because my bow arm is holding. This hand's just flopping down, honestly. I'm not forcing it, it just flops down. And my bow is being directed by my pointer finger here, and my thumb just kind of sits in the back. They're not touching it. It's a very clean release. Now, you're probably going to have a hard time with the cleanness of the bow releasing from your hand, the follow through. This is something that I struggled with for a long time. Some key things you want to focus on, at least my coach was telling me to focus on that helped me a lot, is basically you're just throwing away your bow. Yeah, I know it's a weird concept, especially when you buy something that's thousands of dollars. It's not like it's something that you want to just get rid of, but you really do. When you shoot that shot, you're not thinking in your mind like, oh, I gotta do my follow through. I need to flex my wrist as hard as I can. You don't. You just let it happen, and this is why we're shooting at blank bail or at really most 18-30 meters. Really blank bail. I highly recommend blank bail because you can just focus on the bow just coming out of your hand and your hand just flopping down. Flop. Just flops. Now, you can do some practice without a bow and just you can do your whole shooting motion. If that's going to help you, maybe a little bit of muscle memory to it, especially if you're somebody like me who in the past really held my wrist in place, which is probably very unhealthy, and at the same point in time I really ingrained in my shot process that when the bow shot, I just held it there as hard as I could. I did not let my bow really flop. I didn't let it come out of my hand and swing. Yes, if you look at some of my older videos, it does, but it's an afterthought. It happens after the fact. Now it's much more automatic. It basically happens instantly. When I shoot, the bow goes forward, and my hand kind of just goes with it, with this main finger here, this pointer finger, directing the bow in to which what angle it's coming down at me. Because of course, if I go too far inside, I'm gonna take a limb to the chin. If I go too far outside, I'm gonna hit the person next to me. So there is some control you gotta develop with this. It's pretty easy though. My thing is, if you spend like a week on this, you could probably get it down pat pretty well. Of course, this is just a video, and I had the benefit of actually having my coach help me in person. And of course, there's a lot of little finite things that are going to be different per person. But I think a lot of these steps are a really good start. And between this video and maybe other videos that are out there and just watching world-class shooters, you can get a good concept of where you want to go and work towards that. But really have it do have it set in your mind. You're just letting your bow go. Let it be free. It will get caught by your finger sling. Don't worry about it, as long as you have it attached, that is. And with that, you should be on your way to improving your follow through, especially if you're having especially if your hand's in the correct position and you have some of those fundamental elements of having pretty good form and a strong bow arm already. You can build off of that and have a nice strong follow through after you release your bow. So hopefully that helps. I know it's tough. It's hard to explain this without really showing you in person. So let me know what you think. Did the best I could to really try to explain this piece of shooting without going through like all of it, because it is really something that builds upon everything else before it. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and as always, happy shooting.